I know we're a little behind on our time, but we want to continue with the evening with the next agenda item. And for that, I would request my friend and co-research panelist, lead editor, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, to join me on the stage, please. Sanjay? This one, right? So for some of the Amex people, it is Sanjay 1 Gupta.
Hi, Ari.
Your mic works?
He so desperately wanted to be one. He told me, "तूने नंबर ही बना दिया मुझे." So that's he's saying, "You've got me numbered for life, but so am I." So sorry for that. We share the same name, first name and last name, and there are no other middle names, either of us. So yeah, let's get on.
This works? Yeah? Okay, fine. It works.
Great show, sir. Let's
so
begin.
Standing next to you, it works.
Thank you.
So
let's start.
Yeah. So I think, once again, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think our intent was to also share an extract from an extract of a research report. Just wanted to share the research report looks like this. This is the research report, which we unveiled about a couple of months back in Pune. So we thought we use this evening as an opportunity to share some insights from there. We may not be able to run through many of the points across this research report, but we'll be able to at least flick through some of the big trends. And even in that big trends, I feel we would like to keep it those specifics which may suit you to take it back to your workplace, to relate with it. And many of them you will be aware of those trends, but we just thought to just go through it. I hope it works. Yeah. Just give you a little background about what this research report all about is. This research report, so as a shared services forum, we have a research practice, and every alternate year we come up with a global business services research where we interact with a lot of leadership across the globe into different industry and sectors. It may be in business services, it may be in manufacturing, the CXOs, and a lot of India business services leader to understand their perspectives in how the entire business services landscape is changing, as well as from the customer perspective, what they're looking forward from this space. We also have an online survey as part of it. So we had an online survey where the people went to the portal, fill in their responses, and then obviously we used a lot of primary and secondary research information based on whatever is available in the public domain, as well as whatever is already available with us thanks to last 8-9 years of research. This report is about 90 pages, 7 sections, about some 37 subsections, 90 charts, and many tables, which obviously we can't run all here, but I just have pulled out few specific trends from this book. One of the interesting fact which was hitting us hard is there was a lot of communication around this business services industry has reached its pinnacle. What next? It's all over, already 25 years. And we realize it's about $900 billion industry globally, and only $194 billion has been offshored, including India and other places. So what we are saying is about $700 billion work is still lying somewhere. Now, it is not that everything will move, but there is still a lot to happen in that space. The GIC market in India is about 55 billion. GIC is about 55 billion. India has about 50% of that. Interestingly, about 1,000 centers, and the very interesting number is out of this 1,000 centers in India, more than 50% is less than 500 FTs. So there is one side you will find centers with 5,000, 10,000 FTs, and there's one side you will find centers with 100 FTs, 150 FTs, 200 FTs. So about 57% is less than 500 FTs. Globally, there are 3,100 centers, and out of which 68% is less than 500 FTs. And somewhere, as part of the conversation, the point we're trying to make here is there was a message given by the CXOs. They see this as a subscale. because less than 500 FTs, they feel little hassled or challenged in terms of how much to invest and invest in terms of technology, etc., etc. So it is called subscale, anything less than 500 FTs. Obviously, there's a name change from GIC to GCC. Now, we were deliberating, is it a name change or how to make the difference? GIC is globally now center, GCC is global capability centers. And how much the name change will really bring the capability, how to bring that difference is the question. India continues to be the preferred destination with all this nearshoring, offshoring, RPA, technologies, etc. But the last 12 months, if you see, the trend confirms India continues to be a destination for offshoring, which obviously led by FRC at that point of time. The beauty is the number of FTs, it has highest number of processes, and from the revenue perspective, it is growing much larger. This is interesting. We were talking with some of the folks and we realized that the large BPO deals is shrinking. There's no actually large BPO deals which is happening. This is all carve-outs or buyouts which is happening. And that is where the whole demand and supply is meeting together with customization, where a lot of enterprises are going all about seeing a maturity, and with a maturity carving out their captives or spinning off their captives, unlocking the values, realizing the upfront monetization, seeing a 7-year glide path, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of the deals which we have experienced in the last couple of years. HCL bought Xerox deal, Infosys got Compass, EY, ABN, some of the major deals which is happening. Genpact has gone back to GE again, which what they started with. Now they are having another large deal with some couple of $1 billion, 500 million ACV kind of a deal. This is all carve-outs. And what is interesting here is a trend which we are seeing and we found is even the GIC heads sitting in India are leading and championing that and creating that opportunity. What used to be called earlier, it will be a job threat to the role what you're playing yourself. We are finding that becoming a trend to create how to optimize it for them. Continental Europe, US, UK, absolutely, everybody is aware there's a lot of opportunity, US and UK. US continues to be a market which is providing a lot of offshore services to India, but continental Europe is where there is a lot of traction these days. A lot of people would be aware in Europe, continental Europe particularly, had what we call onshore, nearshore shared services, 100 FTs, 150 FTs, 400 FTs, and now they are considering to really come out of that cocoon to go to the offshoring. That is becoming more and more prevalent these days from the continental Europe point of view. Obviously, the challenge is about how to look at the local laws and languages, but that is something which was mastered by many of us for the last so many years. So now those case stories are enabling them to really come up the curve. One of the interesting thing I was talking about is subscale. So less than 500 FTs is called subscale. And even a mid-size organization, so less than 500 FTs for the entire enterprise function, if you're consolidating, is less than 500 FTs. Primarily for manufacturing companies, if it is a BFSI, telecom, obviously the numbers will be larger. And for a mid-sized corporations which may not have that opportunity to have a larger FT numbers, the classical operating models are not able to support them. There are a lot of specifics where they are struggling in terms of classical operating model, which is pure play captive or play outsourcing. And that is where we are finding innovative ways where they are creating something or different. They are creating, what they call as dedicated captive, managed captive, and so on and so forth. And dedicated captive is one thing which we are finding has a potential to solve some of these requirements. Sanjay, you want to talk about scope?
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. So, from a point of view of how many and what kinds of businesses are now being done by centers, especially the more professional centers, scope expansion is clearly one of the areas that is being majorly looked at, and what areas within the scope. Obviously, expansion is both left, right, top, and bottom. So, more and more inclusivity is being introduced. More and more processes are being introduced. In fact, the concept of customer service is coming in a very, very big way, with the centers now now looking at end-to-end processes with the clear aim of defining what the customer really wants. So customer satisfaction has now become actually the goal or the metric for the centers themselves, even though the centers may look at themselves as service centers. But one of the measures that they keep for themselves is customer satisfaction, which could possibly be the corporate goal as well. The other thing obviously is the maturity of the process. So those rule-based processes have moved on to content-based processes, and now everything is about the contextual process. So a process definition is not necessarily the same. One shoe does not fit all is a standard recognition across the service organizations, and now companies are looking at what does it take to get a certain end result in place rather than a definite process that may have been defined in a certain manner, etc. So extremely flexible processes now coming into play. Very commonly done thing now is getting into digital and analytics. Now analytics is actually becoming an extremely popular location, which is now being taken on by these professional institutes in extremely diverse ways. It's not just simple the financial analytics that used to be done in one place. In fact, our sense is from our survey is that the more common analytics, in fact, coming up in a very big way are clearly the treasury, payroll, tax, inventory kinds. But the ones which are coming up secretly in a very big way behind the scenes is selection, human selection, and recruitment and onboarding, for instance, or training and learning are becoming very prone to analytics, and CRM, customer life cycle management. These are the more happening trends in the analytics world. And finally, innovation. Up till now, almost all centers were talking about rule-based processing or doing things in a defined way. That's why you had job descriptions and you had training manuals. But now those things are also changing with the centers becoming prominent value-add centers. Innovation has become an extremely important element where you cannot necessarily have either a defined process or a defined outcome, because this is by very nature a turmoil situation and a playing field for you to experiment. It's extremely unique, but we are looking at and we are seeing improving and increasing trends of that. People practices have moved big time over a period of time. And Harry described a few people practices which he had learned for the first time. In fact, we are learning from a lot of things that are happening around people practices even now as we speak. Leadership, for example, is not being looked as pure leadership anymore. Now, more and more organizations want absolute, the leaders, the people who are actually leading their businesses to become entrepreneurs on their own. Why should entrepreneurs, what is the difference between an entrepreneur and a leader? Well, the buck stops here. There may be other stages as well, but the buck needs to stop here. It's the risk that you begin to take on your own. It's your personal commitment that comes into the play. And that's where entrepreneurs are becoming the skill or the role or the ability that is being looked at in the first place for true leaders. Clearly, becoming employees or hiring employees is also another trend that we are seeing not necessarily rise to the extent that it needs to. Because of specialization and super specialization, an extremely serious move which many organizations are taking are actually getting labor and specialists on term basis or a contractual basis. Either it could be a fixed periodic term or an outcome-based term. But this is becoming more and more prominent in, especially as the specialization around digitization, etc., comes in place, and you needn't really hire very expensive people, but necessarily have the expertise to carry out the process for you. Retention. Everybody hears about this industry actually having a very weak retention program, and attrition is very prominent. So a lot of effort is being done, has always been done about how to retain people in getting more and more people to stay back within your organization, which has now become extremely critical. So our survey actually found out that skilling, reskilling, etc., though important or does happen within the organization, but the first and the foremost is empowerment. People have to given the right and authority to carry out the way they would like to, and own up on mistakes, and you have to have the ability to make an error without getting a reprimand for it. Engagement, recognition, freedom, and reskilling. Next one. And another very serious element that comes with reskilling is how to reskill. Because it's very easy to say you should upskill, you should reskill, but reskilling isn't a very easy thing, because it's not necessarily very easy to teach new tricks. I shouldn't use the rest of the sentence, but it's not very easy to teach new tricks. But therefore, one of the organizations, they're actually devoting time to make processes simpler. People are phased into processes rather than being brought in here so that the outcome is gradual. There are blended training programs. Organizations are creating processes where training them on newer techniques or newer elements or newer platforms is becoming partial, and so on and so forth, including creating a very serious internal labs and dealing with it from external point of view as well. And there are a whole lot of initiatives, that very, very innovative initiatives, that people are talking to us about how they're creating the reskill programs.
Yeah, so I think, thanks Sanjay. So from the technology perspective, the organizations, again, earlier we used to think about small size, mid-size organizations struggling with the ERP. In fact, the organizations which is growing from mid to large, they are all thinking of how to optimize the technology, and that way is looking even ERP as a service. So that ERP as a service is something which is quite predominant from both the buyer perspective as well as the seller perspective. And we can see in many of the major ERP logos moving towards ERP as a service. AI to AI, as we, again, we are in the world of acronyms. So AI to AI is all about artificial intelligence to augmented intelligence. We are all talking about machine learning, NL, whatever. It's all about how this supports you to do this augmented intelligence, where you have the mind, the human, and the technology put together. That is where the organizations are more moving towards, rather leaving it just about to the humans and the machines separately to work. One other thing which is becoming very critical, and we have found in this research as a trend, is people are not, actually, I'd not mind making a statement by saying homegrowns are dying, homegrown applications are dying. The concept of homegrown applications, people are moving towards ecosystem, because there's something or other is available for that technology in the market, which is good to fit for your requirement. Now it's just about finding that ecosystem. Something may come for a price, something may come for a very lower price available. So people are moving towards ecosystem, then saying everything I will create and develop. From an RPA point of view, this is very interesting. I think I have been talking personally with about 50 plus CXOs across the globe. And one of the question when I used to ask is, have you done an RPA? And I spoke to about some 100 GIC leaders, and everybody raised their hands by saying, yes, we have done it. So almost 90% plus says, yes, we've done an RPA. The next question was, how much you have really adopted it, deployed it? The response was, adoption perspective, we have done POCs. We've done free POCs because of thanks to many of these platform providers who have enabled us to do a POC. Have you done beyond that? We are finding ways to figure out how to do that. So only 30% people could say we have really done beyond POCs. And very effectively deployed, which is a part of a larger transformation program as a strategy of an organization, only about 15 to 20% people could respond saying, yes, we have effectively deployed as a part of a shared services. In fact, one of the shared services, some of the trends in this RPA, interestingly, we are seeing is people have gone and named the bots, by saying, this is John, this is Mary. John is on leave today because of the maintenance work. Mary is leave on today because of the whatever, some changes are happening, and so on and so forth. Now today you can, digital workforce, where you can, if you want an AP bot, you can just do an AP bot, and there'll be thousands of AP profiles will be available by saying, I can do manufacturing, and in manufacturing I can do three-way match, SAP, I can do GRN match. I'm an Oracle bot, so they are designed for Oracle bots. So you can search for Oracle bots, SAP bots, and those kind of things in AP also. That's kind of a workforce, and the profiles are available like we used to search for human beings.
Yeah. By the way, many of the bots, as we saw, had employee numbers, so that they can be identified and handled, and they want to be phased out or promoted. All of that works.
Promotion, I don't know.
Well, I didn't mean the kind of promotion there, but promoted means augmented.
I agree. But some of the challenges, why still out of this, the reasons we were trying to figure out why they have not moved from saying I've done a POC, and because there was a push from many of this platform provider, and we have not effectively taken it to the next level. I think the major challenge is they're doing it because there was a push. Or when I spoke to many of the GICs, India GIC guys or center heads, they were saying we are doing it because headquarter wants to know what different you are doing. So I have a tick in the box saying I'm doing RPA. It was not really meant for as a part of your strategy. It was something just to tick in the box. So the right strategy, and why you are doing that, because there are some of those process transformation we realized when we went to the depth of the conversation, we realized could be possible even through simple automation, could be possible to simple workflows and so on and so forth. Just because you want to do an RPA, you're doing an RPA. The challenge, another challenge is, a major challenge is, you see acquiring, and I'm just jumping between few of the pointers here, but acquiring a tool is not sufficient. Many times people just get a tool, select a tool, a platform, and say, now I have partnered with XYZ, that is good enough for me to do an RPA and bots transformation across the processes. It's about the entire stakeholder change management, the process behind that, because what it was and what it is going to be in that box, the problem is once it goes in the box, already it was a tacit knowledge or even a documented knowledge, but the moment it goes in the box, 90% only the box know what it is inside. So that's a major challenge, and that's where the stakeholder communication, etc., is becoming a big problem. And this is true for large global GICs with 5,000, 7,000 FTs in India, and we have experienced them struggling with saying, oh, I have done 20 bots, but that is only for when the visitors come from overseas to show them. One other point on the RPA, other thing which I felt was very important, somebody highlighted by saying, communication. Are you making a communication about you're replacing human being, or are you saying I'm making a skilled environment and an enhancement of the capability? Because many times when you go and talk to the people whose work you're going to automate, the scare is you're replacing humans. That's become the important element of the communication. Some of the specifics to India shared services, I think that's an interesting one. I think just taking a step back, 94, 95 saw American Express and then GE, and GE made it big with the business services industry. Unilever, HUL actually, started in 2003-04, the India shared services and made it big, with Tata Motors following, Dr. Reddy's, Ranbaxy, and so on and so forth. So there was Indian organizations which were going into this journey of shared services. The interesting piece is, out of BS 1000, only 10% companies in India have adopted shared services strategy. Why so? There are 4 myths. They don't understand how to get a positive business case. Because there is somewhere a perception that our scale is going to be small, will be about 50, 100, 150. I was talking with somebody before this event started, saying we are 40 or 50 FTs. And by design, we compare 40, 50 with 7,000s and 8,000s of a global environment and say we will not get an arbitrage. And that is where the problem is. They create very functional strategy, which is finance function strategy, HR strategy, IT strategy. It is not an organizational strategy. Like you already talked about challenge for change, that kind of organizational strategy is something which is missing. Also, some of this Indian organization, in the last 10 years, what happened is, India is famous for taking leap. Our landline system is not good, but our mobile system is very good as compared to US and UK. At least now for the last couple of years it's bad because of call drops. But at least we took a leap in terms of some of those technologies. So some of the Indian companies took a leap in terms of outsourcing and they struggled. They had a very bad experience because they felt they are a small fish in a big, huge ocean and no attention, and they decided to pull out. Even today morning, in fact, I was talking to a very large BPO provider, a very prominent name, and they said less than 1,000 FTs, we don't even blink our eyes to think about their problem. Anything less than 1,000 FTs doesn't make sense. Obviously, sales guys will say 50 FTs also makes sense. No one from BPO here, I hope. Otherwise, it will kill me. More than 80% of Indian companies which has gone through the shared services journey, they have realized this savings of more than 10 to 25%, some even more than 25%. That whole myth about no business case is just a myth. Obviously, we also try to understand from them that what is the reason, how you get this positive business case, what really makes it happen. So it is not about consolidation effect. People sometimes say it's only just pulling people together or a labor arbitrage. It is about right fit, right span of control, right level mix. The people for 20 years doing the same job, passing the bills. Now you need to educate them to do something else. And they have grown from being a frontline associate to becoming a senior general manager. I know somebody who was running a payroll in an India large $3 billion company who was earning more than the CFO of the company. And she was a payroll general manager. Some of the Indian corporations which has already gone through this route of shared services is moving into what we call SSC 2.0, what maybe GIC has gone into 4.0, 5.0. So 2.0, where they have already done this consolidation, they're moving to optimization, having that capability and maturity, looking at that. What is most critical for them to sustain is to expand. They need to grow, they need to expand, and make sure that the governance and strategy is linked. The governance sometimes dropped in the India shared services, creating a lot of challenges for them, and moving back to become a department. Future investments and priorities for a lot of global organizations we see is all about this whole value story. Instead of saying, tick in the box saying I'm doing an RPA, I'm doing some innovation, I'm doing some bigger transformation, I'm doing ML, etc., etc., what is important is to communicate value story. For that, you need to understand, capture, and communicate. What you're saying is first you need to know your potential, create that potential or the value, then obviously deliver that value and have a bottom line impact in a P&L. The challenge, what we realized, they're all talking about value story. Everybody was able to relate with these 4 bullets. The challenge was many of them is not even capturing what we call fully loaded cost per FT. In our research and survey, we were surprised to see hundreds GIC leaders saying our fully loaded cost is personal cost. Right? So there is somewhere that's a huge gap. Second, the charge out, on the question of charge out, they responded, we are cost plus. So how cost plus and charge out is different needs to be understood. So we see there is a need to move, before moving to value story, to think about just charge out and charge out differently than just a cost plus. Digital adoption and effective deployment is important. That's not about the tick in the box. As I talked about, they were talking about effective deployment. Reskilling and upskilling is very critical, how to look at the elements of reskilling and upskilling. What we are obviously sharing from our SSF point of view is also we are saying is about future ready versus future shock. So you need to be future ready for given some of this changing stuff.
So I'll just take 30 seconds, I promise, and I'm not going to make this into a very busy, though it looks very complex. So one of the things that we realized when we were doing this intensive study and thereafter talking to lots and lots of people in the industry is saying that the minds have changed, the maturity has grown. We have moved up and right. We are not looking at businesses in isolation. We are not looking at processes in isolation. We are looking at the enterprise as a whole. We're not looking at the solution of the process or of the business, but we are looking at customer support. We are looking at customer satisfaction, the end results of the corporate as a whole. So we realized that it is not now merely sufficient to keep ourselves confined to what we used to call business process management, because business is only restricted to that level of creating that industry, and process is just the end-to-end management of that process of the business. But we are saying that there are hundreds of elements in addition to running an enterprise than mere processes. And that's why we created this format. We call it Centum, because we believe that Centum as a format, in as far as realization is concerned for the leaders of the world, is very important to take care of these 6 elements. And I'm not going into all of them, just reading them out for you. And we are very, very happy to engage with anybody for this, make us richer, and try and see how we can engage this in a much better manner in the world outside. So we start with customer-centric operations. Our operations needs to be customer-centric. There is no doubt about it. Customer has always been considered king. He's a kinger now, if you can use the term. The enterprise management has to be complete end-to-end. This has to be absolute start to end kind of a thing. More important now, and ending with the customer journey is extremely important. Partnerships. No one had actually talked about the softer elements of the business. We've heard this everywhere, that most deals happen in the golf courses or in the golf tees. And where is that captured? Why is that not an important element? So relationships become very, very important. And half the time in a particular relationship, you can deal with it even if there is a failure. And some with a minor glitch, you may want to actually retaliate. And so relationships, become very important. Tech integration. Now, technology has become business. Technology is no more integrated. Technology is business. And therefore, if there are companies who say, we carry this business and we use this technology to support it, it's all wrong, it's going down the tubes. So technology is becoming extremely important. Capabilities are important. Capabilities are now becoming more and more prominent and refined. So capabilities cannot remain generic anymore. They are becoming extremely specific. And finally, transformation, especially during the times of digital metamorphosis. This is an important element to be watching out for. And business models change so drastically that just keeping pace is a full-time activity for leaders. So with that, we'd like to request any one of you. We are very happy to engage on the Centum model, and any questions that we may have on the survey itself, as soon as we are done with the formal session, you're welcome to join us and raise any questions. So, thank you.
And also, Sanjay, just to mention, this copy is available. The exec summary is free available if you want to request for exec summary. The full report, the hardbound as well as the soft is available. Some of the hardbounds are available here for a sale. So if you need it, obviously you can pick the copy, one of the copies. The last point I want to leave from an SSA point here is a request to all of you. A shared services forum is trying to work towards creating this best practices, trends, knowledge, sharing, etc., etc. And for the last few years, what we have been doing is we have a quarterly journal by name Process Edge, which covers a lot of articles from the leaders like you sharing their case stories, the journey, and so on and so forth. Both ways. This will get more traction if you start reading it and using it and asking some questions back to the author, not to me, who has written that story. And also adding and sharing more of your journey and case story, because this is a community. As we in the beginning we said, it's a forum by practitioners for the practitioners. We are not an event company. So it is important that I leave a request with all of you that please do contribute to Shared Services Forum Journal. Bring your stories, share your stories. Surely share your failures, if any, because that becomes a best part of the learning for some others. So that's all from our end, and thank you. Anand, over to you for a vote of thanks.